Okay, please start. Good morning. Now, first one, today we'll be majorly discussing about our the UPSC CSE Prelims, which year? Now 2026. Now this UPSC Prelims 2026, now which took place yesterday. Now coming to our, it is this complete UPSC CSE 2026. Now in today's class, we'll be completely, it is discussing about which all things? We'll completely discuss about which all things? The first one will talk about what is the trends. First one will talk about the trends. And second one will discuss about how the paper was. Now with respect to paper, both the papers, paper 1 and paper 2. And the third one in today's class, we also talk about majorly about our what can be the cutoff. I'm using a term called as what can be the cutoff with respect to our paper 1. We'll see this. And along with the things, we'll also talk about, do we require, is it seriously required to change our source or change our studying patterns? And we'll also talk about how the questions have been changing in the recent 5 years. Now from 2021, the pattern is changing. Now what is that pattern we are seeing with respect to all those things? We'll see with respect to our today's class. I hope it is clear. Now in today's class, we'll be majorly studying about, not about our paper discussion, rather we'll talk about, it is about our trends, how to see this paper. And the third one, it is, was it tough, moderate, or it is easier? And the third one, we'll also talk about what can be the cutoff with respect to our different categories. For GM category, OBC or ST, for SC category, ST category, for all those things, we'll see all those things one by one. Done. It is now coming to our, the first and the foremost one, it is, have you checked the paper yesterday's? Noted the paper, Anna. Now nodirtakantaru, how was the paper? Was it easy, moderate, or is it difficult? Now what do you think? It is, I can say it is very difficult. When we are seeing with respect to, we call it as now UPSC. Now this UPSC is making unpredictable. Now unpredictable Public Service Commission. Now and the questions in the recent 5 years. The recent 5 years, it is majorly from moderate to, we call it as very tough, I can say. But this year, the questions were majority from which one? Majority from very tough. And now this is agreed. But the question here is, sir, how to see this question paper? How to see this question paper? Now, how we need to prepare it for the next year? Now we'll see all those things one by one. Done. Now coming to our first one, I completely agree. As of now, it is unpredictable, but we'll see how to see this paper. What's the trend we are seeing it? How to do it within major agi? It is within limited period of time. How to do it? We'll see all those things. Done. Now first one. Now exam yavag nadito. Now when was exam? It is yesterday. It is Sunday, 24th of May 2026. Now, how was the overall? It is feedback. How was the overall feedback? It is based on the paper 1 and paper 2. How was the paper? Was it lengthier? In second one, was it conventional, following the previous year trends? And the third one, have they changed anything? Now, if they have changed anything, what has been the change we have seen with respect to our, the last, we call it as, or yesterday's, the paper UPSC CSE 2026 paper. What was that adaptation? What was that change we need to see from our upcoming examination also? Now, when we are talking about the initial feedback, the first and the foremost one was, we call it as what? It is lengthier. It was very lengthy. It is within 120 minutes. Reading this 100 questions, it's a very difficult task. Understand the question here. Now, I'm using a term called as within 120 minutes. Why 120 minutes? 2 hours. Now, within 2 hours, it is solving 100 questions. And that too from an unpredictable zones. Now, if you understand polity, now polity in the questions is there, but the questions are very vague. The polity questions are more analytical. The questions are from the non-core areas also. And the second thing, ಬಂದಾಗ ನೀವು ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ ಏನ್ಷಿಯಂಟ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮೆಡಿವಲ್ ಓದಲೇಬಾರದು ಅಂತ. and everyone would have done the same thing. But this year, majority questions have been from where? It is ancient and medieval, majorly about the southern dynasties. There was a question, and Eastern Sati, it is North India. It is North India where the focus area, as well as we got as modern area where the focus area. We used to focus more on Guptas, focus on Mauryas, focus on we got Harshavardhana dynasty, focus on we got as modern directly. But this year, it is the unusual happened, and that they have moved from which to which one? It is history nodaga. It is, we call it as from modern based questions to we call which one? Ancient and medieval got a focus. And the third one, when we are talking about polity in the Prati Varsha 20 to 22 questions used to be there, minimum. But this year we'll see how many questions have been asked. Now it has been reduced it in and around 14-15 questions. But are we in a position to solve this 14, at least 15 questions? Are we in a position? No. Are we in a position? And it is more of, we call it as analytical, more of integration with our current affairs, integration of our, we call it as the recent, the trends about articles. Now, Constitution of India mention agide ilva. We have studied only from article 1 to 4. Now, article 1 to 4 ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋದು, but ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು non-core areas, more of analytical, more of comprehending power. ಇಲ್ಲಿ mug-up will never work in the future. Mugging up, remembering the articles 1 to 15 ಗೊತ್ತು ಸರ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ will never work. The same manner, even with respect to our science and technology, the most neglected is science and tech. But this year, one of the highest amount of questions have been asked from science and technology, and that is focusing upon current affairs. Recent one about the Nobel Prize, about focusing upon, we call it as Genome India project. Now, all those were not in news in the recent times, that were in the, it is news in the last 2 to 3 years. Not this year's news, be cautious here. That was not in news this year, the last 10 to 15 months news irlilla. But this was in news majorly with respect to our 2024-25 alittu. But this was being asked. And there was a question about, we call it a gene editing technology. There was a question about Nobel Prize, but again Nobel Prize also not a direct one. They've given a statement. It is identify which one is correct. Now, which one to identify? Is it chemistry, physics, followed by economics? ಯಾವ್ದು ಗೊತ್ತು ನಮಗೆ? UK ಇಂದ ಯಾರು ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಯಾರು ಗೊತ್ತು ನಮಗೆ? We don't know. Okay, ಇಷ್ಟಾದ್ರೂ okay. But coming to our next pattern changes, again statement based. Question ಓದಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. Nothing but question ಗೆ answer ಗೆ answer. Pattern we are seeing it. It is not to make it tough, rather to, it is wasted time here. The time management itself is a major challenge here. It's not about difficultiness. I completely agree it is difficult. Yak difficult antandre, nothing but we had limited time. With respect to, we call it as lengthiness of questions. Comprehension of paper 1 ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Getting it? Nothing but CSAT actual paper 2 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. But when we are talking about 2026, the more amount of, we call it as comprehension, the bigger passages, bigger, we call it as case study based questions, have been asked in GS1 itself. That itself made lengthier. And second one, I already said, second one we call it as, it's not about rote learning, it's about, we call it as analytical aspects were being asked in the questions. More amount of comprehension, more amount of linking the subjects onto topics, linking the subjects itself, linking economics with, we call it as science and technology, linking science and tech with biodiversity, linking polity with, we call it governance, IR. More amount of analytical questions have been asked. And the third one, we call it as, it is disruptive, majorly disrupting the conventional questions or the traditional based questions. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ, PY ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಇದೇ ಪ್ಯಾಟರ್ನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. But the question is, this UPSC is following a trend called as unpredictability. But the question is it unpredictable? Now, how many questions were tougher? How many questions were moderate? How many questions were easier? We'll see all those things one by one. Done? Now, when we are talking about our major one called as our first one, ಯಾವ subjects ಇಂದ ಎಷ್ಟೆಷ್ಟು marks ಬಂದಿತ್ತು? How many questions have been asked from different subjects? Now, how to answer? Now, what is the trend which has been changed with respect to our recent things? We'll see that. Now, when you understand, it is over the period of, we call it as the last 5 years. Over the period of last 5 years, the major focus was on, the major and the majority of the questions were being asked from, we call it as polity in the questions ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ರು. Majority were from the polity, and ಅದು ಮಿಸ್ ಆಗಿದ್ರೆ majority questions used to be from environment and ecology and economy also. But now the trend has been shifted majorly towards, we call it as non-core area, and that non-core area we call it as history, art and culture. And I've already said, when we are talking about history, the questions are not majorly from the modern Indian history, rather the questions are from which one? The questions are majorly from, we call it as ancient, art and culture, and majorly with respect to, we call it as, now which history is this? South Indian history was being asked majorly. South Indian history was being asked with respect to this ancient also, majorly focusing upon the Cholas, the Cheras, the Pandyas, art and culture, the Dravidian architecture, Nagara architecture, ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ focus ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. The most neglected is this. We used to focus direct text spectrum, ಹೋಗೋದು spectrum ನ ಮಗಪ್ ಮಾಡೋದು. Now this year, it is hardly some 3 to 4 questions are from modern. In majority, out of this 20, it is 16 questions from art and culture, as well as we call it as majorly from our ancient dynastics, focusing upon South Indian dynastics. The change in trend we are seeing with respect to history. And second one, the second major important focus was, we call it as second yavdu, science and technology. Now science and technology anta bandaga, you would have studied science and technology, but elimination was, it is little bit easier. I'm not saying it is very easier, it is moderate to, it is difficult irodrinda ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಾಗಿತ್ತು. ಹೆಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಸರ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, the question was on Nobel Prize, but ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. And second one, it is, you could have solved with respect to genetic engineering, the gene technology you could have solved. And third one, we call it as the third one, majorly about defense, majorly about space, PSLV, GSLV, in space ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಿತ್ತು. The question one, defense ಮಾಡಬಹುದಿತ್ತು, drone swarms ಮಾಡಬಹುದಿತ್ತು. But out of this 17, it is 10 was, I can say it is moderate, but 7 was very difficult. You ಕೇಳೇ ಇರಲ್ಲ, very difficult. But along with the things, sir ಏನ್ ಸರ್ ಕನ್ವೆನ್ಷನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ರಪ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ಟ್ರೆಡಿಷನಲ್ ಡಿಸ್ರಪ್ಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ನೀವು ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ತಪ್ಪು, ಅಂಡ್ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಆಲ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ತಪ್ಪು. ನಾವು ಆ ಥರ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ಸೇ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ ಈ ಸತಿ. Now that faltu things, it is completely eliminated by the UPSC now. Now it is only a game of, we call it as only a game of analytical skills. How much you can cross your core zone and how much you can analyze. They've not asked a question about ST, they've asked a question about process of ST. Notice the process of ST was in use from it is since Manipur issue, Meithi's cookies issue. And they've asked a question about, we call it the constitution, because we are celebrating 75 and 76th year of Constitution Day. Question. More of current affairs so alla, at the same time static alla, mix of this two. And it is more of analytical based. And think about Nodi, it is environment ecology, more of, we call it as more of analytical. They have not asked questions about species or kelila. Species bagge kele illa. And they have not asked a question about IUCN also, but majorly focusing upon, we call it as pollution themes, focusing upon, we call it as biodiversity, focusing upon, we call it as majorly about our climate change. 9 questions or the 10 questions. And the same thing applies to, I've already said, it is polity and governance in the bandaga, it is not direct at all. Preamble in the prati varsha question kelabekittu, but varsha illa. And second one, it is on fundamental rights. There is no topic on fundamental rights except 0 FIR bit 2. 0 FIR bit 2, there is no questions. More of advancement, more of criminal laws, BNS. It is IPC has been renamed, followed by, we call it as Evidence Act has been renamed, followed by CRPC has been renamed. Idhar bagge questions again, current affairs from 2023 as well as 2025 also. EFIR. And there were such questions, and no question from DPSP, no question from duties, no question from amendments. And there are few questions from Parliament, and there are few questions from, we call it judiciary also. Only few questions. Out of this, we call it as 12 to 14 questions. I think, but hardly you can solve some 6 to 8 questions. In Mikirtakanta, 4 to 5 questions are very difficult, and even if you solve also, it is very lengthier. It will take time, grab your time. And along with the things, it is some economy topics. Economy in the 16 question kelidare. But there are few basic questions also, moderate also, and it is, we call it as, there are difficultiness also. But this was economy, this was very expected. Economy was expected, but there are few questions also were unexpected also. And overall paper ನೋಡಿದಾಗ it is majority where we call it as moderate to we call it as the toughness, moderate to difficultiness. Now we'll see all those things. Sir, in questions ಕೇಳಿದಾರಲ್ವಾ, ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ questions ಕೇಳಿದಾರೆ? Now we'll see that one by one here. Now observe the paper itself, this UPSC paper 1. Now observe. Now you can observe all those things. Take an example here. Which of the following are Carnatic music? It is from majorly we call it as Carnatic anta ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ it is art and culture, about Hindustani music, about Carnatic music, who's the father, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಓದಿರ್ತೀವಿ. But other specific ನೋಡಿ one line answer, factual answer, either you know or you don't know. ಪೇಪರ್ ಏನಲ್ಲಿ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ they want to demotivate you, saying that ಎದೊಳ್ಬಾರ್ದು ನೀವು ಅಂತ, some half an hour ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ ಅಂತ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ it is some 15-16 questions are from history. Nodi, history. And that's the reason I say that this UPSC is not an exam of knowledge. This exam is also about, we call it as, how we manage our mindset also. Even when we don't know anything, how can we manage? I'm not saying, sir, clear agbidatta ad expression. But I'm here only to say that it is how to see this paper. Yes or ಸರ್ ನಾವು ಮೊದಲೇ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ವಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪೇಪರ್ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ಮೊದಲೇ ಮಾಡೋದು. Now how to see this ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿ, it is with respect to we call it as Carnatic music ragas. They have asked about ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಹಿಂದೂಸ್ತಾನಿನೇ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಗಾಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿ ಅಂತ. And second one ನೋಡಿ, this somewhat expected Hilton Young Commission, you would have studied with respect to we call it RBI. Hilton Young Commission recommended we call it as RBI ಇಷ್ಟು ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. Somewhat you can take a guess. Getting it. Now again, direct questions. The artificial fixed rupee, the sterling exchange rate prescribed by Hilton Young Commission 1926, was adopted by the British government for which of the following reasons? Now Hilton Young recommended RBI anta gottirutte, but ಏನು related to remittances? Again a challenge. Again direct question. Either yes or no. There is no guesswork here. Yes or no. In the same manner, when we talk about it, is consider following statements. Now recently nodi Pali Prakrit, again in 2024 current affairs wala, Pali Prakrit followed by Bengali, Assamese, followed by Marathi was being given, we call it as classical language status. The year 2024, but they was specifically about, we call it as the Pali text, Pali the literature, and they was about saying that nodi. First one is question. Adikke above statements have been associated with which of the following? Again statement. After that answer. Though you might know, it is many thought that ide question, ide answer anta. But for this, you need to analyze this, and later on you should come to a conclusion. Yes or no? This is, we call it as consumption of time consumption. And ade reeti nodi, direct question. Either you know or you don't know. We know about Nagara style of architecture, but we don't know it is examples. But guess ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ options. With one elimination you cannot guess. But Virupaksha temple ಪಟತ್ಕಲ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಮಗೆ, ದಶೋತ್ತರ temple ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Hope you're getting it. Now when we are talking about Virupaksha temple, we know Virupaksha temple ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಎಲ್ಲಿದೆಯಪ್ಪ, what type of architecture is that? And majorly we got as Dyogar type of architecture, we know that we can arrive. Hope you're getting it. It is majorly, it is Kuchimallagudi temple, Ayole, adadmele bartakkantadu, it is Badami. But majority, you are aware, it is all this does not come under, we call it as Dravidian type of architecture. All this comes under where? It is mix of this, we call it as Vesara type of architecture. But you can use your common sense. But this too cannot be used, but this can be used. When we are talking about Nagara type of architecture, nam kelu goತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ Nagara architecture anta ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ. Now what is Nagara architecture? It is South Indian, we call it as architecture andre, we call it as Dravidian. North adran Nagara, mix adran Vesara. And with respect to East, we call it as North, South, West and East. Now North we call it as Nagara architecture, East we call it as Reiki architecture, and South one we call it as South we call it as majorly about our Dravidian architecture, followed by West one. West we call it as Vesara. Now Vesara architecture. At least with foundation, with concept, you can solve. But it is not from our, we call it as core area, rather it is non-core area. Art and culture. It is majorly from which one? Art and culture question, art and culture question. Yes or no? But this could have been solved, or this could have been eliminated with an options. If you were aware about all these options, north yadu Nagara, south yadu it is Dravidian architecture. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಗೋಪುರ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ we call it ವಿಮಾನ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, pyramidal ವಿಮಾನ. When we are talking about Vesara, star shaped architecture. But the question they are asking here is, which of the following it is, which one? Nagara style Shikara, North India. North India ಯಾವ್ದಿದೆ, majority comes under where? Majority comes under Nagara, whereas Deccan ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು comes under which one? Complete deep south, Dravidian architecture. Based on this, you could have taken some guess, or you could have eliminated some options also. See, every option is not, it is major agi, it is hit and run. Rather, you can take some foundational basics and you can apply that basics also. Yes or no? Done. This is majorly about, or we call it as the fourth question. Now, Adi Riti, observe again with respect to this fifth one, Jainism again. And again, they've asked a question about Jainism and Buddhism. Prati varsha iratte. But the question is, you won't be in a position to solve, but you need to take a guess. With the limited knowledge you have, you should take a guess. Now they're asking about, among the four main form of existence of life recognized in Jainism, which of the following is not included? Yaadu include agilla. Majorly we call it as devas, gods, yakshas, it is manushas, humans, or by we call it as majorly animals and plants. Now which one is not included? Now if you know about Jainism with respect to the core principles, now which is not included, which is included in the Kutagad nimge. Now, have they recognized gods in Jainism? Now, neither accepted nor rejected, but they are focusing upon, we call it as majorly about Tirthankaras. Now, how many Tirthankaras do we have? It is 24 Tirthankaras. And on the concept you could have applied here. Jainism founder yaru? Who is the founder? It is Mahavira. Mahavira is the 24th Tirthankara. It is majorly we call it as Rishabhanatha or Rishabhadeva or Adinatha. And you don't know about core principles of Jainism here? Yes or no? In the same manner, they've asked with respect to, we call it as direct questions. Take an example of Harappan towns. This you could have solved. Harappan towns ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ Harappan towns ಇರ್ತಿತ್ತು, grid like pattern, followed by underground drainage systems. You could have solved with respect to Rigvedic period also. Vedas. It is the first, we call it as the rural civilization. First urban civilization Harappa, rural is Veda, by applying this knowledge. But the problem was ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇದೇ problem ಇಲ್ಲಿ. Concept ಗೊತ್ತು ನಮಗೆ, but ಆದ್ರೆ it is ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೇಳಿ confuse ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. This you need to identify. See, whenever the UPSC, if you are going for any examination, the next year also, there will be unpredictability. But how to make this unpredictable or predictable? You need to learn it from, we call it as, it is the uniqueness. Unique pattern you need to understand. See, Prati Varsha I am saying, I am seeing this paper from last 10 to 11 years. I know Prati Varsha uniqueness irutte. Every year there will be unpredictableness. Now if you want to get a selection criteria, it is unique practices ಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ. It's not unpredictable. We want unique practices. Selection criteria you want. Now that unique practices is nothing but we call it as soon as you see the question you should adapt. Okay, ಈ ತರ pattern ಬರ್ತದೆ. 2023 they brought in a new concept called as statement only one is correct, two is correct, both 1 and 2 are correct, none of them is correct. And last year they have followed this via match the following, but this year they have brought in via we call it as multiple statements. Statements get statements, and later on you should arrive at an answer. After seeing this, you should adapt. It is Harappan ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತು, first statement, second statement, third statement ಗೊತ್ತು. Apply this. Statement 1 suggests the statement 2, or we call it as it is statement 2 ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದೆ, statement 3 ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಿದೆ. Apply. But I completely agree it is lengthier. It is very tough. I am agreeing it. But exam ಹೋದಾಗ either by hook or crook you should arrive at what? ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬರಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. I have only 2 hours and that 2 hours should be used judiciously. ಆಗತ್ತೋ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೋ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ವೆರಿಫೈ. ಬಟ್ ಹೌ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ವಿ ಅಡಾಪ್ಟ್, ಹೌ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ವಿ ಅಕ್ವೆಂಟ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಚೇಂಜಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್? ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಓದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದನ್ನು UPSC ಬೇರೆ ತರ ಓದ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಓದ್ತೀರಾ? ಸಿ UPSC is UPSC. You cannot read it differently, but you can analyze differently. The same remains same. NCERT plus source books plus current affairs plus PYQs. ಸರ್ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಬರ್ತಿದೆಲ್ಲ PYQs ಓದೋದೇ ಬೇಡವಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ in that is foolishness. You cannot change anything except your mind. The times of AI, we don't want it is only the rote learning. We don't want only factual learning. We want analytical skills. We want it is connecting the points from one subject to the other. That is what they are expecting. And we'll see cutoff ಎಷ್ಟು ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ 100 ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. And it is, but the problem was, see, we are aware about, we call it as Rigveda also. But the challenge was, it is this. Statement based. Now, after understanding this, we need to understand this also. Total all 3 6 ಆಯ್ತು. And later on, we need to go for a identification. Same like passage. ಮೊದಲು passage ಕೊಡ್ತಿದ್ರು, ಈ passage ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ದು ಸರಿ ಇದೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ತಪ್ಪಿದೆ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಯಾವುದು. But now the passage was being integrated into where? Integrated it into, we call it as GS1 itself, paper 1 itself. The trend we are seeing this year the trend is this. And case study based content kododu, identify which of the option is right, either X or Y. This is X, this is Y, it is identify. See, not only UPSC was, read any examination, there will be uniqueness, there will be changes, there will be updation, there will be always, we got an unpredictability, there's always an advancement, there will be always a surprise. But surprise cannot decide your rank or cannot decide your clearing or not clearing. But out of 100, at least you should be in a position to predict some things. ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ, ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಂದಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ which sector are they focusing at center? If it is at state, which sectors are they focusing? Based on inclination of that, you need to decide ಯಾವ್ದು ಸರಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ತಪ್ಪಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಏನ್ಷಿಯಂಟ್ ಓದಲ್ಲ, ಮೆಡಿವಲ್ ಓದಲ್ಲ, ಟೆಂಜೆಂಟ್ ಅಂತೂ ಓದೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಆರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಓದೋದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ ಓದ್ತಾನೆ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ, ಹುಡ್ದಾಗಿಂದ ಸಾಯೋವರೆಗೂ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್ ಓದ್ತೀನಿ. ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಈ ಸತಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲೀನಾಗಿ, ಊಟ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಕ್ಲೀನಾಗಿ, ಓದ್ಲೇಬಾರ್ದು ಇನ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತ. ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್ ಓದ್ಲೇಬಾರದು ಇನ್ಮೇಲೆ ಅಂತ. ಒಪ್ಪಿಗೆ ಸಿ ಟೂ ಮಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಟೂ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ನೋಡ್ತೀನಲ್ವಾ, ಹುಟ್ಟಿದಾಗಿಂದ ಸಾಯೋವರೆಗೂ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್. ಬಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಲ್ಲ, ಓದ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಬೆಳಗಿನ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಓದ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ. ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮತ್ತೆ ಹೈಲೈಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ಗೆ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಬೇಕು ಸರ್. ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀನಿ, ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ದಪ್ಪ 1 ವರ್ಷ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸರ್ ನೋಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ರೆಡಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀನಿ. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗ ಮಾಡೋದವರು. That is what we are seeing here. We don't want rote learners. We don't want mug-uppers. We want one who can analyze, one who can arrive at a decision, one who can adapt. The challenge, I'm agreeing it, challenge. But kalibekalva adana. There's no option. When there's no option, you need to learn. Then this is with respect to our, we call it the same things. The same thing which is also being followed. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಅಮರಾವತಿ ಸ್ತೂಪ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Post Mauryan architecture, they've asked. We have 3 type of architecture with respect to Buddhism architecture, which is the 3 type of architectures. One we call it as Gandhara, Mathura and Amravati stupas. This you could have done it with these. Nodi, options are also very easier. Amravati school alli ittu, Gandhara andre enu, followed by we got as Mathura school of architecture, Buddhist architecture majorly. This is analyze. They are hitting on it as art and culture. Neither purely about the political dynasties, neither purely about Mauryas or Guptas, not even Vijayanagaras, because everyone knows about all those 3. But they are going for, it is, we call it as the smaller dynasties. It can be the Cholas, Cheras, the Pandyas, or it can be Hoysalas, or it can be about art and culture. The same manner, in the same manner, Nodi, Buddhism iconography, direct questions. Now this you would have studied. Idin pakka odirtare, ancient alli pakka odirtare. Nothing but different rivers, they are modern names. Idandu pakka odirtare, but on salpa how to remember it is a challenge. You need to make some mnemonics. Idundu pakka odirtira. Rigvedic literature alli what the name which is called with respect to the Chenab, Jhelum, Ravi, Bias, Sutlej, Indus. Then there is the direct question. Modern in the or ancient in the it is direct question. You can do this. This adantu madabodu, and this we can talk about this. Idu on salpa. It was very easier. You could have taken some guess at least. And I'm not saying it is ella question sari agatte anta, but some guess. But this is not do it. Which of the following pairs of kings and dynasties in the early historical, it is the Tamil literature with respect to not correctly matched. Not correctly matched. But first of all, it gottilla namage. Cheras, Cholas and Pandyas are very neglected. Gotturu kuda most popular nodkondu hogtivi ashte. But now Cholas bandaga ಏನು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ? We'll talk about ರಾಜನ ಚೋಳ ಮುಗೀತು. Or recent ನೋಡಿ, recent ಆಗಿ ಸರ್ ಏನು ಸರ್ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದಾವೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, it is the recent BJP government or the union government have renamed the Port Blair to which one? Port Blair to, we call it as Sri Vijayapuram. And we are going with respect to the ties between, we call it as the Tamil literature as well as Varanasi. This we are focusing. And we are also seeing a trend with respect to, we call it as, recently TVK government came to power, focusing more on, we call it as the Tamil literature or the Tamil culture, the Tamil traditions. This they are focusing. But in mundake ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, it is what I'm trying to say here is you cannot leave any subjects unturned. That's what I'm trying here. You cannot pick up and you cannot study. ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾತ್ರ ಓದ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ಓದ್ತೀನಿ, ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆಕ್ ಓದಲ್ಲ, ನಂಗೆ ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆಕ್ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಷ್ಟ, ಆರ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಮೆಡಿವಲ್ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ 10 ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ನೋಡಿ ಮಾಡರ್ನ್ ಒಂದು ಇಲ್ಲ. Hardly there are 2 questions, one is Subhash Chandra Bose and forward block, ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಮುಗೀತು. Hope you're getting it. There are hardly few questions, forward block plus Subhash Chandra Bose. Again, this was the news. Could have done it. And ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ it was a question called as, ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬಹುದಿತ್ತು, question from polity. Government of India Act of which year? 1919. We call it as Montague Chelmsford reforms. ಇವಂತೂ ಕೇಳಂಗಿಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು at any cost. Because in your polity also you would have studied, at the same time you would have studied even in your history also. The deprived classes rallied around the favors with respect to, we call it separate electorate. Now separate electorate ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? 1990 ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ? The same time you should know about, we call it a separate electorate ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, women ಯಾವಾಗ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, laborers ಯಾವಾಗ, for Muslims. You would have taken some guess here. Yes or no? It is all such questions are being asked. It is statement based questions. Observe this. Observe 35. Nodi. It is, we know Sagarmala program. We know Sagarmala, Bharatmala. But the problem was we know all the 3 options. Because it Bharat, ministry yaad baratte, your objective and we know. Port-led development, for the modernization of, we got as the coastal regions or the seas or the ports. But the challenge was this. Strategy or the statement 2 validates the effectiveness of strategies it has envisioned in the statement 1. Illi we don't want scheme ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಓದೋರ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ scheme ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಜಾರಿಗೊಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. If there is a scheme called as, we got the major Swachh Bharat mission. We don't want Swachh Bharat mission launched by ಯಾರು, ಯಾವಾಗ ಲಾಂಚ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಬೇಡ, ಬಟ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಆಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಅಂತ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Reason we always say that, at least just listen to All India Radio. News na ನೋಡಿ, analysis ಮಾಡಿ. Indo-Iran ಅಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ, it is we don't want the places, location disputes ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಡ, but we want some analysis also. ನೋಡಿ second one, statement the 3 extends the objectives of statement 1. They connecting. Statement 3, it is, we call it as extends the objective of statement 1. And observe third one, statement 1 contradicts statement 3. It is the 2 options itself are contrary. One is saying that statement 3 is satisfying statement 1, whereas statement 1 and 3 are contradictory, opposite ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಲೆ ಕೆಡುತ್ತೆ. Not the question, but with respect to, we call it as relationship, or we call it as the statements get irritated. ಅವಾಗೇನಾಗತ್ತೆ, ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಸಿಗತ್ತಾ, ಓಕೆ, ಸಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಟೈಮ್ ವೇಸ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ, ಪ್ರೆಷರ್ ಬಿಲ್ಡ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲ ಗುರು 40 ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಏನ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ತೀನೋ ಇಲ್ವೋ ಅಂತ. 1 hour ಅಲ್ಲಿ 30-35 ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ ಮಿಕ್ಕಿರೋ 1 hour ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಸಿಗೋದು ಅದು ಹಾಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀವಿ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅವಾಗ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ರಡಿಕ್ಟರಿ, ಎಸ್. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ 3 ವೆರಿ ಎಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 2 ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ. ಅವಾಗ ಜಸ್ಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಷನ್. ಅವಾಗ ಆಲ್ 1 to 3 ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಅವಾಗ ಓಕೆ ಮೇ ಬಿ ತಪ್ಪು ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ, ಇವಾಗ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ 1 and 2 ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. ಯಾಕೆ ಇದು ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಇಯರ್, ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಹ್ಯಾಪನ್ಸ್, ನಾಟ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಯರ್. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜಿಂಗ್ ಯುವರ್ ಟೈಮ್. ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ 1 hour ಗೆ 30 questions ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ second hour is going for analyzing, or we call it as analyzing 70 questions. How will it justify your statement? In 1 hour 70 question, first hour 30 question andre, don't you think it is injustice or injustice? Unjust you are doing to the paper itself. The reason you know or you don't know is you should solve on an average it is 1 minute to 1.5 minutes. ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಿರೋ ಪಟ್ಪಟ ಅಂತ. But we are not doing it. Yes or no? And the same thing has been happened. Idondaitu. And I have a question about matter following. Nodi vela stealth technology we have discussed, and you also know, boss. Adikken bere en brahmastra en bekagilla illi. We can do it. Stealth is nothing but it is non-hackable. What why we call it as we won't be in a position to we call it identify that technologies. We are using it in nano. We are using it in with respect to we call it space. We are using with respect to human beings also stealth technology. ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ಫ್ಲೈಟ್ ಹೋದ್ರು ಕೂಡ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗಲ್ಲ. That is stealth. Incentive is very basic. It is very easier. But the condition here is you should have known about the technology at least. They have asked about, we call it as ನೋಡಿ black box ಬಗ್ಗೆ. We have discussed this black box also. ನಿಮಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತು. Recently because of what? Because of Ahmedabad, it is we call it as the plane crash, or with respect to we call it as the crash. Black box ಬಗ್ಗೆ. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಲಾಜಿಕಲ್ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಓದಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ನೀವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು ಸರ್ ನೀವು ಇವಾಗ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ, ಬಟ್ ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಇಟ್ ಬಾಸ್, ವಿ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಇಟ್. ಬಟ್ ಅಗ್ರಿ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಅಗ್ರಿ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಔಟ್ ಆಫ್ 100 ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೆರಿ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಎವ್ರಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್, ಬಟ್ ದೇರ್ ಆರ್ ಫ್ಯೂ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಡನ್. ಈಗ ನೀನೇ ನೋಡಿ ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಬಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ ದೇ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಎ ಬೆಕಾನ್ ಎಮಿಟಿಂಗ್ ರೆಡ್ ಲೈಟ್ ಅಂತೆ. ವಿಲ್ ದೇ ಎಮಿಟ್ ರೆಡ್ ಲೈಟ್? ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಲಾಜಿಕ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್. It can emit, we call it as they they carry a beacon emitting red light pulses to facilitate underwater direction. Underwater red light ಹೆಂಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? ಈ ಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆದ್ರೆ ಓಕೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ವಾಟರ್ we call it as some ultrasonic sounds which can release. First option. Second ನೋಡಿ, they record both the cockpit voice and flight data. Yes, ನಾವು ಬಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸಾಯ್ತಿದೀವಿ, ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್. Third one, their memory units are made using either stainless steel or titanium. Options ನೋಡಿ. 1 ಹೋಯ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. 3. And I agree, statements are there. ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ? 15 ಇದೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. But that 15% is making us 85% is of pressure. 85% of pressure is being created by that. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನೋಡಿ, now you would have studied about it is AI ಓದಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಪಕ್ಕ ಓದಿರ್ತೀರಾ. The difference between LLM and AI, it is LLM ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is not about the law degree ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು large language module. Now what is this LLM, large language module? The basic, the primitive form of AI we call it LLM. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಜಾಗ್ರನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ, you can easily do it. ಹಂಗೆ ನೋಡಿ, that is the reason I am saying ಪ್ರತಿ ಸತಿ it is green hydrogen ನೋಡಿ 2023. This green hydrogen was being launched in the year 2023. Exactly. I'll show you the images also. Exactly ಹಂಗೆ ಪಿಕ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ. Not from any source, it is only from government source. ಇಷ್ಟು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಲ್ಲ ಎಲ್ಲ ಗೌರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಇಂದಾನೆ. ಹಂಗಂತ ನಾಳೆಯಿಂದ PIB ಓದೋಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಏನ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಏನಾದ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕು, ಸರ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ PIB ನಾಳೆಯಿಂದ ನೋಡು ಒಂದಿನ ಬಿಡಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. PIB ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದು, PIB ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಹಾಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, PIB ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ದಡ್ರ ತರ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ should know what to read and what not to read. Hope you getting it. See, it is too much, it's too bad. ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟರಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಒಂದು ವಾರ ಕ್ಯಾಬಿನೆಟ್ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಆಗತ್ತಾ, ಪಕ್ಕಾ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್, that we need to know, and you need to know what to read and what not to read here. And the green hydrogen, easy question. ನೋಡೋಣ, ತೋರಿಸ್ತೀನಿ ನನಗೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವೇ ನೋಡಿ, it is green hydrogen, it's a decarbonized hydrogen obtained from natural gas ಅಂತ. Is it from natural gas? ಮತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರೋ ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ? It should be renewable. Now is natural gas renewable? First option eliminate ಮಾಡಿ. Third ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕಷ್ಟೇ. But obviously third should also be correct. They're asking here, natural green hydrogen mission aims for abatement of nearly 50 million metric tons of, we got the annual greenhouse gas emission by 2030. ಇರ್ಬೋದು, approximate ಇರ್ಬೋದು. That is SDGs. Perfect. 23. Hope you're getting it. The 15 questions or 16 questions from history does not decide your, it is clearing percentage, but it will decide how will you solve the paper next. 15 ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ನೀವು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಮೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರಿ ಅನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಇಲ್ಲ ಗುರು ನನ್ನ ಕೈಲಿ ಆಗ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತೀರಾ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ 27 ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಶುರು ಮಾಡ್ಲಿ, ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ಬೇಕು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಹೋದ ತಕ್ಷಣ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಹಂಗೆಲ್ಲ ದಡ್ರ ತರ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ವಾಟ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಸ್, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒಂದ್ಸತಿ ಯುದ್ಧಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಎರಡಾಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಇದರ್ ಇದಾಗ್ಬೇಕು ಅದಾಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಸಾಯ್ಬೇಕು ಇಲ್ಲ ಬದುಕ್ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು. There is no middle year. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಜಿ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, I'll do it is what is best for next year. ನಾನು 2030 ಪಕ್ಕಾ ನೋಡಿ SDG ಗೋಲ್ ಅಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ನಾನು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋತೀನಿ. Those are faltus. ನೋಡಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಈಸಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ನೋಡಿ. ಕರೆಂಟ್ ಅಫೇರ್ಸ್ I'll show you with evidence. ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಬನ್ನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬರಲ್ಲ, ರಿವಿಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಹೊಸದು ಏನ್ ಸಿಗತ್ತೋ ಫ್ರೀಯಾಗಿ ಸಿಗರ ಸಾಕು, ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು, ಅವಾಗ ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಿರೋದು, ಮೆಸೇಜ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ, ಅಣ್ಣ ಇದು ಪ್ರಿಂಟ್ ಹಾಕಿಡಿ ಬರ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಓದೋದು. And you should know, see everything you are becoming an officer boss here, and you should know what to know and what not to know here. First ನೋಡಿ, in space ಪಕ್ಕಾ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ. Indian Space Promotion Authorization, it is center, it is majorly for private participation, ಪಕ್ಕಾ ಗೊತ್ತು. ಇದು ನೋಡಿ, ಒನ್ ಇರಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅಟ್ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ 23 will go, 75% accuracy. Second, we'll see Agnikul Cosmos launched the world's first flight using 3D printed rocket engine. Yes. No, na. Irli. It is Skyroot Aerospace has developed liquid fuel for GSLV. ಈಗ ನೀವೇ ಹೇಳಿ, ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಾಮನ್ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್, ಈಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಇಸ್ರೋ ಇರಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಇವ್ರು ಯಾಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ? ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ಬಚ್ಚಗಳಲ್ವ, ಇವಾಗ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಮ್ಮೂರೇನು 1969 they are doing it. They can do it within seconds ಅಲ್ಲಿ. 3 ಎಲಿಮಿನೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬೆಟರ್ ಆನ್ಸರ್. Hope you're getting it. ಏನು ಮಾಡಿಸ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್ ಹಿಯರ್, genome India product, it is a part of human genome project. Okay, the project is funded by DBT, Government of India. The primary aim is to build a catalog of, we call it as genetic diversity of Indian population. ಇದೊಂದು ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ. You would have studied this part in biotech. What is human genome project? HGP1, HGP2. What is India genome project? Biogenome project. ರೀಸೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ? ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬಿರ್ಸಾ 101 ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. On the eve of 150th anniversary of it is Birsa Munda birth anniversary. Now we have gone for first genetic, we call it as the profiling of the tribal population took place. Birsa 101 anta. Adu question ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು. What is the technology which is used and which is the project which are being used? Incent ಇಂದ 17 ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರಿ ಈ ವರ್ಷ. Cannot compromise. And that too, it is very easier, but you need to understand here. And next comes our quantum. ಗೊತ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ quantum technology ಬಗ್ಗೆ, but understand this now. ಈ ತರ ಮಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ. Nothing but it's a case study based. ನೀವು ethics ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ it is 125 marks will be for case study. It is X is then some IPS officer. Now recently take an example of the recent, we call it as sexual harassment, or we call it rape which took place and we call it as Delhi, or it can be Kolkata, or it can be Andhra. They can give some cases. Mr. X, a senior officer, was overseeing a critical vaccination program during pandemic. He found that a private service provider responsible for vaccine distribution was compromising on the quality to make profits. Despite immense pressure to manage issues, he ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಇದಾವೆ ಕಥೆಗಳು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟೆ. ಟೈಮ್ ತೊಗೊಳತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಈಸಿಯರ್ ಟು ಡೂ. ಅಕೌಂಟಬಿಲಿಟಿನ, ಈಕ್ವಿಟಿನ, it is esprit or we call it as delegation of authority, equity, accountability, good governance. ಅದೇ ಬೇಡ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಬಟ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನೋ. ಅದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ? ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಪಾಸಿಟಿವ್ ಮೈಂಡ್ ಸೆಟ್. ಇವರು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗೋದು, ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗದೆ ಇರೋದು, ಐ ಆಮ್ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅ ಗೇಮ್. ಬಟ್ ಗೇಮ್ ಆಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರ. ಈವನ್ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಫೇಲ್ಯೂರ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ಅಟ್ ಲೀಸ್ಟ್. ಬಿಡಪ್ಪ, ನಾನು ಐ ಗೇವ್ ಮೈ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್. ನೋಡಿ, ಸೇಮ್ Mr. X, mid-level civil servant. Such questions have been asked here. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, begin ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ case study plus statement options. But easier, but you need to apply your very common sense, good level of common sense, analytical skills. Repeating it. Done. Just either questions, so major questions ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, and I'll show you some polity questions also. ನೋಡಿ, polity questions. 55, consider following statement with reference to Constitution of India. There is no article in the Constitution of India. ನೀವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ? ನೋ ಅಂತ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ತಪ್ಪು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ರೀಮ್ ಅಂತ. There is no Constitution of India, or there is no article in the Constitution of India that specify that Constitution of India will be officially called a Constitution of India. ಬಾಲಯ್ಯ ಬಾಬು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇದ್ದಂಗಿದೆ. Getting it. First one. Second one, there is no article in the Constitution of India that specifies that Indian Independence Act of 1947 and the Government of India Act of 1995 stands repealed. Constitution illa, but adre majorly we have in our, we call it as a different, we call it as Constituent Assembly discussions. Third one, there is no article in the Constitution of India that mentioned 26 January 1950 as a date of commencement. Illa, but 26 November ಇದೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿ. Hope you're getting it. Done. Yes, now it's not a game of, we call it as only about, it is analyzing. Analyzing, we call it as the content. Rather, we call it as, rather we need to know how the questions are being asked. Then it would have been wrong also. Obviously, article kelidiyalla specific ಆಗಿ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ obviously it's wrong. When they are specifically asked, it is ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ, if it is more of general things, you can take a guess. Yes or no? This is about our allocation with respect to our, it is GS paper 1. But ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಸರ್ ಈಗೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡೋದ್ವಲ್ವಾ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ? That we call it as, majorly we call it as, I have already said, it's a fusion paper. GS paper 1 is what? A fusion paper. It's a fusion of which one? The static as well as we call it as the current affairs. Hope you're getting it. It's not about only about the current affairs, purely current affairs. Pure current affairs ಮೂರೇ question ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Pure current affairs ಮೂರೇ. And second one we call it as, second one, static and current affairs have dumped this year. More than 50 questions are from this fusion paper. And more of, we call it as conceptual clarity ಬೇಕು. Options are close at testing. It is nearby options ಇದಾವೆ. You need to take a guess either which is right and which is wrong here. They are checking about, we call it as analytical skills, conceptual clarity, the deep understanding about a subject, interlinking about a subjects also. That is major. Again, statement based questions, I already said what is statement based questions. It is, there will be question, and after statement, after that we got options. Or it can be, we call it as, majorly we call it as our case study based statements as well as options. This has dominated over direct factual questions, statement based questions. And the fourth trend we call it as interlinking of, we call it as not the topics, rather this year they are expecting which one? The subjects. Interlinking of subjects. They are expecting, illivargu governance questions keltane irlilla, but this year governance has dumped. There are limited IR, now it has increased. Mapping has increased. I'll show you examples also. This we call it as GS paper 1. The trend, and overall I can clearly say that it was moderate to very tough, I can say. Sir, how many questions were moderate level, how many questions were difficult, and how many questions were, we call it as, how many questions were easier? What percentage I can say? Now with respect to tough, moderate, and we call it difficult level, or we call it as It is analysis was easier. Now, ಎಷ್ಟು percentage ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ only 20 to 25% of the questions were direct this year. And remaining moderate ನೋಡಿ, moderate 50 to 60%. 60 plus 20, 18. Remaining which one? But now, adine heltakanta multiple statement questions were trickier and options were also there. Now, idrinda namage enaytu antandre 85% of the stress, and a stress adaga now idನ್ನು ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ. Hope getting it. Now it was only 15 to 20 questions, but because of this we could not do this also. And that's the reason I always say that this exam does not only require, it is a knowledge. Rote learning ivattinda mugit, end of the story. No rote learning, no NCERT, nothing. It is even if you read NCERTs also, you should analyze by interlinking of the topics. And at the same time, it is you should diversify your interlinking also. Subject interlinking, topic interlinking, multiple analysis, multiple level of analysis, like an officer. Okay, na? And the same thing with respect to the paper 2 also, the CSAT. Now, when we are talking about CSAT, now how many questions have been asked from, we got a different, it is areas. How much from English comprehension or reading comprehension, followed by maths, logical reasoning, interpersonal communications. Now, majority questions yadinda kelidare. It is quants, quantitative aptitude, or in a simpler manner we got as what? Maths. CSAT. What is CSAT? What is CSAT? It's not maths. If it was maths, automatically I would have said that it is 80 also maths. Civil services aptitude test. Civil services aptitude test. How many questions will be asked? How many questions? 80. Now, out of this 80 questions, they have divided here. Now, majority maths. Again, it's not very easier. Again, it is moderate to, again, difficult level. At least it will take some 2 minutes to solve. This, and second highest one is reading comprehension. This we could have done it, but the time consumption is it is long. Time consumption, followed by we call logical reasoning, analytical reasoning, the table, graph diagrams, logical and analytical skills. Last one comes our interpersonal communication. They've asked, they've asked how many questions here? It is 16 from this, 33, 24 and 17. All put together we call it as 80 questions. Done. But the question is, do we want to solve all the 80 questions now? No. We want it as 27 to 28 questions, right? We want how many marks? 67, 66.66, 1/3. If it is 1/3, it is you need to touch upon all the things. 10 from this, 10 from this, 10 from this, 10 from 40. That we need to plan here. Before going to it is UPSC examination, you should plan. Okay, then it is I'll touch upon all the sectors. Logical reasoning, interpersonal communication. At the same time, we'll also touch upon, we call it as major about aptitude, maths. At the same time, comprehension, logical reasoning, as well as interpersonal communication also. To analyze this. Then we'll see. Sir, it is according to you, what it is, how was the paper 2? Now, was it difficult? Was it lengthier? Was it analytical? Was it comprehensive? Was it very difficult to solve? Was it more time consuming? Hengittu. Hing anstapa nimage. Nodi. It is, when we are talking about, we call it as the paper 2. So this paper 2. Again, nodi. Inkoti there questions nodi. This is our question. Directions of 5 questions. Now you need to know the directions here. Now, based on that first question set in 1, 2 and now you should know which one is right and which one is wrong. Nodi, 5 questions. But easier, nodi. Idin solve madakadre idu madu. But ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಗೊತ್ತಾ, ಪೇಪರ್ 1 ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಪೇಪರ್ 2 ಅಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. Because you know, the carry forwarding of this pressure from one paper to the other paper. See, we are human beings, we cannot do anything. ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ ಮರ್ತ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ಮರ್ತ್ಬಿಟ್ರು ಕೂಡ ಹಿಂದೆ ಓಡ್ತಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಆಗಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗಿಲ್ವಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. Even if it is easier also, you cannot solve this. Like questions nodi, second nodi, passage, short passage with options. But ನೀವು ಅನ್ಕೋಬೇಕು paper 1 tough ಬಂದಿದೆ, paper 2 easy ಇರುತ್ತೆ. It is again moderate to tough, not very tough level. Moderate to tough level. Understand this? Nodi, understand nodi, clock diagram, clock. Easier question clock. And they've asked a question about dice also, they've asked a question about we got the percentages. They've asked a question about sitting arrangements. This direct questions, it is solvable. I'm not saying it is answer right baratto ilvo anta heltilla, but you can take a guess. After it is putting some effort for the last 6 months, you could have attempted a question at least. Getting a right answer or wrong answer, it's a secondary part. But the question is, can you attempt it or not? We can attempt it, but the thing here is, we want what? Nodi, matte nodi, passages tumba dodilla. Hardly it will take some 30 seconds. Identify the core statement, which one is right and which one is wrong. Easier. Now in a simpler manner, I can say that now CSAT has become GS1 or GS1 has become CSAT. More analytical has been added in GS1, but now CSAT. It is very easier. It is why CSAT the toughness has reduced, sir, on the killer, because recently there was a debate in the parliament saying that it is discriminating. We call it as it is discriminating the South Indian states. Adukoskar paper only bari it is South India vage. Saka anta. Now nodi discriminate ಮಾಡ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನೋಡಿ. And CSAT is also very less, sir. Very, it is because nodi solving this. Matte speed, time, distance, work, the speed, you could have done it. Now, sir, overall, coming to overall, it is understanding about this paper, overall understanding about the CSAT paper 2, or we got as the paper 2. Now, major reading comprehension, I can say easily, it is easy to moderate, I can say. Out of, we call it as out of 24 questions, 20 questions was very easier, boss. But rest, some 4 to 6 questions are a little bit trickier or a little bit difficult. But 6 bit ಹಾಕಿ ಗುರು ನನಗೆ ಅತ್ತೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ, ನನಗೆ ಅತ್ತೆ ಬೇಕು ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ. Second one, aptitude, quantitative aptitude, or we call it as maths. But I'll solve very basic one, difficult. Overall, it is very difficult. But I'll solve out of 33 questions. Only 15 questions solve ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ವಾ? Can't we solve some 15 questions? We can't. The last comes our logical reasoning. Again, it is very moderate to very easier, I can say. But overall, paper 2 it is moderate level. Not very tough, I can say. It is overall, this paper was, we call it as moderate. Sir, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ okay. It is major ಆಗಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ what can be the cutoff after analyzing with respect to your paper 1 and paper 2. Now, paper 1 and paper 2 analyze ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ this is my just, we got a views. Now, none of views ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಇದು. Now, based on this, the cutoff will never cross 100. That's for sure. And second for sure here is, now it will be less than 90 also. For general merit candidate, it will be less than 90. But I've given you a range, saying that it is CSAT clear agi. If you are getting in and around, we call it after the official key answers, be out in a day or two. Now, if you are getting 85 to, we call it as the 95 range, ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ತಗೋತಿದ್ರೆ, it is always recommended that go for, don't wait until the official results are announced. It is directly go for preparing mains. And ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ same thing applies to OBC also. Now, OBC ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನಪ್ಪಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ some 5 marks difference ಅಷ್ಟೇ. Some 5 marks difference, 5. Approximately, this 5 difference marks will be the same for it is general merit candidate, EWS, OBC, SC, ST, all those things. If it is Divyang or disabled, it can be less than this also, in and around 60. ಇಷ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ, but the condition ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ paper 2 clear ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. CSAT must have cleared. And after this, if you are getting in this range, it is always recommended that go for preparation for means, don't delay. Sir, ಮಾಡಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is at least start with it is essay and ethics paper. Start with at least essay and ethics paper na ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ಟೈಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. And along with the things, the qualifying papers also. English and Kannada, it is mandatory that you know to start from now itself. When there is a break, start. Essay and ethics, mandatory you need to start because it is very scoring papers. 250 on an average you need to get more than 125, and you will get good rank also with respect to your attempt. ಇದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಸರ್. ಇಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು, ಬಾರ್ಡರ್ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಈಗ ನೀವು 85 ಕೊಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು 84.5 ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಏನು ಮಾಡೋದು? What to do? But for them also it is recommended half mark, 1 mark, it is surrounding ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ರೆ to start it. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಟೈಮ್ 1 month ಸಿಗಲ್ಲ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ they'll delay, at least they'll take some 20 or 25 days to give a result. ಇವಾಗ 25th ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಮಂತ್ ಆಫ್ got some 10, 15 ಆ ತರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಾರ್ಮ್ ಅಪ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ at least you can good to go for mains also. That reason I would say that it is at least start with essay as well as ethics with respect to your preparation. Done. This is with respect to our, it is the paper which was being conducted yesterday with respect to ಏನಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is our UPSC the CSE Prelims. Sir, idella okay, the prelims was very, it is moderate to difficult, but the question is, was it able to do it from our classes? Now especially from our recap, the direct questions were 25 questions. Direct plus indirect are 30 questions. I'll give you proof also with evidences also. Question plus evidences, never note earliest. And the last one also recap, it is we had 33 questions, both including static and the current affairs. Now this time purely with respect to our the current affairs, 25 direct questions. And second one with respect to our direct and indirect, some 5 extra more, 30 questions have been directly appeared with respect to our examination. With evidences, no, now with evidences, now this was our courses, which was recap 3.0, which majorly in this we have discussed about our 15 months of current affairs, major linking up with the static part. We not only discussed about only purely current affairs, rather current affairs linked with static. The changing trends we analyzed. We have discussed about a topic on, we call it as awards. We have discussed a topic on sports. We have discussed a topic on indexes. We have discussed a topic on, we call it as the non-core areas, the schemes, along with the core part, economy, polity, velladra bagge. And the second one is, we call it as, this is about our free course, the RCB series, the free course, in 15 months, the free course. He varied in the, it has 30 questions. So direct question from our, it is from our recap. So direct ditto. Not really ministry. Ministry of Earth Science, direct question. I've already thought you also while discussing about recap, the ministries will be wrong. Now, Indian deep ocean mission which are correct. ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಗದೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಅನಲೈಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಡಿಫಿಕಲ್ಟ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ನೋಡಿ ಹಂಗೆ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಪಟ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು. ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ವೇಸ್ ರಾಂಗ್ ಬಾಸ್. ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೀಪ್ ಓಷನ್ ಮಿಷನ್, ಮೈ ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ ಇಸ್, ವೈ ವಿಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಕಮ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್? ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ಗೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಡೀಪ್ ಓಷನ್ ಮಿಷನ್ಗೂ ಸಂಬಂಧನೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇದರ್ ಇಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಅಂಡರ್ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಆಫ್ ಮೈನ್ಸ್ or it should be under Ministry of, it is Earth Sciences. We have discussed here. Ministry of Earth Sciences and a deep ocean mission, Samudriyana project. One eliminate madadre niಮಗೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. We have discussed A to Z. It is while discussing about, it is biodiversity. It is biodiversity or beyond, it is biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction. This year also I have discussed, this also I have discussed. What is territorial zone? What is, it is, we call it as contiguous zone. What is we call it exclusive economic zone? What is we call it as, what is majorly about, or we call it as international zone, or we call it as high seas. ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. Yes or no? Then it is, if you eliminate the ministries, NIOT, Matsya 6000 direct questions ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು ನೋಡಿ. It is, which of the following statement are correct? With deep ocean mission are correct, ministry and Matsya 6000 direct question. To carry out the 3 people from deep sea, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ. Samudriyana is a project under this mission, obviously yes. Deep ocean mission is also called as Samudriyana mission. Sir, ಈ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಯಾಕೆ ಸರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಆಫ್ಟರ್ Chandrayaan 3 success, our major project was inclined towards, we call it as Samudriyana. Chandrayaan hatra Samudriyana anta. It's also called as deep ocean mission. Under this we have developed an equipment called as Matsya 6000. Ministry ಯಾವುದು, ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ NIOT ಅವರು ಯಾರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. First direct question, ಹಂಗೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರಿ. This is the second question. This is not to, it is boast myself saying that okay ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೆ ಅದು ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ. My point of thing is, at least next time ನೀವೇನು ಈ ತರ ತಪ್ಪೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ ಅಂತ. ಹೇಳಿದವ್ರ ಮಾತು ಕೇಳೋದು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಓದ್ತೀನಿ ನಾನು, NCERT ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಅದ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಇದು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಫ್ರೀ ಕೋರ್ಸಸ್. ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಯುವರ್ ಪ್ಲಾನ್. ಈ ಆಫೀಸರ್ ಆಗ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥವ್ರು ಆಮಿಷಗಳಿಗೆ ಒಳಗಾಗಬಾರ್ದು. ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನೋ ವಾಟ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಅಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ನಾಟ್ ಟು ಡೂ ಹಿಯರ್. ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ರೈಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ರಾಂಗ್, ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು ನೋ ಹಿಯರ್. ದಿಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಪೋಲ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೊಂದು ಇಮೇಜ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೆ. ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್. ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬ್ಲೂ? ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬ್ಲೂ ಇಯರ್? ಬ್ಲಾಕ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಬ್ಲೂ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, ಎಲ್ಲೋ, ರೆಡ್. ಸರ್ ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೇಜರ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಂಟರ್ಪೋಲ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇತ್ತು. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆನ್ January 10, 2025. I've discussed about Interpol, when it has been established, where the headquarters, objective ಏನು, ಕೋಆರ್ಡಿನೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆ ಯಾವುದು ನಮ್ಮ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದ, CBI, and different we call it as notices. It's a direct question. Hope you're getting it. The next one, so this ONDC, very easy question. ONDC, again this ONDC was being asked with respect to, we call it as majorly in our, again with respect to our the recap itself. ONDC, NRA pushes for ONDC as an alternative to, we call it as food delivery major, Zomato and all. Direct question, option C. It's an alternative to which one? Now ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆ, lengthier statement will always be an option. ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಲೆಂತ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ದೊಡ್ಡದಾಗಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅದೇ ಆನ್ಸರ್. But we have discussed this also. What is ONDC? How are we using ONDC? What is the difference between e-commerce and ONDC? And we have discussed about, it is major in National Restaurant Association of India. What was the demand? What is open network on digital commerce, ONDC? All these things. With evidence, there's videos ಕೂಡ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ, ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಇದೆ. We'll release the evidences also. Next one we call the same Persian Gulf from our RCV series. RCV and mapping. Hormuz ಅಂತೂ ನಾನು ಪಕ್ಕನೆ ಮಾಡಿದೆ ನೋಡಿ, Hormuz ಮತ್ತೆ Persian Gulf. Direct question. Ships from which of the following countries have to cross the Strait of Hormuz to reach out Indian Ocean? Basic question ಗುರು. Basic ನೋಡಿ, ಈಜಿಪ್ಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಈಜಿಪ್ಟ್ಗೂ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಸಿರಿಯಾಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧ ಇಲ್ಲ. Because Egypt and Syria borders with which one? Mediterranean Sea. It's not with Persian Gulf. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ Persian Gulf ಗೆ. Strait of Hormuz, Gulf of Oman. ಅವು ಬರ್ತವೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಒಮಾನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, UAE ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಇರಾನ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಆರ್ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಹರೇನ್, ಕತಾರ್, ಆಲ್ ದಿಸ್. ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್, ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ನೋಡಿ ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ. This, it is answer is 1 and 3. Hope you're getting it. Done. ನೋಡಿ ಸೇಮ್ ಹೇಳಿದ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ನೋಡಿ, ಸೇಮ್ ಇದೆ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೆ. It again government source, exactly same. Hope you're getting it. What is green hydrogen mission? Now green hydrogen is, in a simpler manner we call it as hydrogen which is being generated from, it is energy from, we call it as renewable sources. It can be solar, wind or all those things. First one wrong ಆದರೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬಂತಲ್ಲ. ಇದು ಸರ್ ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ಡೌಟ್ ಇತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 50 million metric tons ನೋಡಿ, 50 million metric tons, it is 5 million metric tons per annum with respect to, we call it as investments. We are talking about, it is how can we support renewable energy, followed by employment ಎಷ್ಟು, followed by investment ಎಷ್ಟು. ನಾನು ಕಥೆನೂ ಹೇಳಿಲ್ಲ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ, ಇಷ್ಟೇ ಹೇಳಿದೆ. That is a question. There are a number of questions, but at least we could have in a position, or we are in a position to at least get this. But this is very tricky, I completely agree. This is very tricky. ಅದೇ ಹೇಳಿದ Nobel Prize ಬಗ್ಗೆ, X born in UK. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಯಾಕೆ ಬೇಕು ಗುರು X born in UK? Was conferred to Nobel Prize in 2025. He was a professor in an American university. When this prize was announced, identify X. Not sure. But we have discussed about Nobel Prize. We have discussed Nobel Prize. You could have taken some guess at least. Is it chemistry, physics, all those things we have discussed. What is Nobel ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, for by ಯಾವ field ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, for by we call it as Nobel Prize. Everything is, it's in your the portal itself. You can check, cross check also. And videos ಆರಾಮಾಗಿದೆ. We'll also edit all those videos and we'll release that also. And it is, I'm saying again and again, it is not to, it is boast myself saying that okay ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು, ನಮ್ಮ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ನ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು, India4IAS ಬಂದಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಲ್ಲ. But what we are expecting here is, at least you should trust us and you should believe us, and whatever we say, at least you should do that diligently with dedication. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ I've taken so much of risk. ಎನ್ನೆ 12 ಗಂಟೆವರೆಗೂ I have done all those evidences, because searching all those things is very difficult, because we'll be having huge amount of resources. ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಕಂಪೈಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ, ಎಸ್ ಸರ್ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತೀರಾ. We want some evidence also, we want some, it is all those things also, screenshots also, that took huge amount of time, 12 o'clock. That I prepared. Because analyzing all the paper, it's take very difficult time. ನೋಡಿ ಮತ್ತೆ Sudarshan Chakra, direct question again from newspaper. ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದನೂ ಕೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಪೇಪರ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ಆರ್ ಅಫಿಷಿಯಲ್ ಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ಸ್. The Prime Minister announced this as a part of our Red Fort while giving a speech with respect to our, it is majorly we call it as Indian Independence Day. Direct question. So this basic question is Sudarshan Chakra of India. It aims to enhance India's defense. Ballistic missile, I have discussed about what is ballistic, what is cruise also I have discussed. Second one, we have discussed about Iron Dome, we have discussed about the THAAD missile. The third one of the missions is to achieve all the public places by 2035. Easier, but you would have taken some guess. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನೋಡಿ, it is Lake Turkana, this is from mapping. Direct question ನೋಡಿ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋದು ಇದಾವೆ. ನಾನು ಅಂಡರ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ಮೊದಲು ಹಂಗೆ ಇತ್ತು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಅದನ್ನ all is underlined. The largest desert lake. ಮ್ಯಾಪಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಇದೆ, ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ನೋಡಬಹುದು. Largest desert lake in the world ನೋಡಿ. Direct options. Second one, the lake is situated in South Sudan. No, I said it's not even in Ethiopia, it's in North Kenya. Second also is wrong. Third is correct. The lake is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Automatically, it's a UNESCO World Heritage site again. Major agil nodi. UNESCO World Heritage Site in the third option. Even without knowing also, if 2 is wrong, automatically you can arrive at some answer. This news. It's the world's largest permanent desert and has been deemed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site also. Same ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಾನು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ, ಅದೇ ನಿಮಗೆ. Next one, observe this. Andaman Nicobar. Today, Andaman Nicobar ಬಗ್ಗೆ we have discussed about a number of topics about Andaman Nicobar. Direct questions. With reference to climate of Andaman and Nicobar Island, which of the following is correct? So the climate can be defined as humid tropical climate. Obviously, howdo, it's an island. Again, observe this. The rainfall receives both from southwestern as well as northeastern monsoon. Howdo, because it's an island one. But third one, nodi, maximum precipitation is between December and May. See, December and May summer iruttalla, winter irutte, alle avag male agutte. But male agಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಯಾವಾಗ ಮಳೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ? June to we call it as December. It's not from December to May. It is from June to we call it December. Will be having a maximum rainfall. Hope you're getting it. And again, we have discussed about, it is Andaman Nicobar also. We have discussed about Lakshadweep also. We have discussed about, we call it as majorly barren island, Narkondram Island, A to Z. What is 10 degree and Reno? What is 10 degree? We have discussed about what is the highest, the plateau or the highest mountain of Andaman Nicobar. We have discussed 6 degree channels, A to Z. But A to Z keldaga, at least you will be in 101%, you will be in a position to solve this. Done. And next comes our, we call as nodi. I've added some images also. RCB marathon series, the 2 weeks ago, or the 3 weeks ago. The 3 weeks ago, under our, we call as RCB mapping marathon series, current affairs. Nodi, it is blockchain technology ಬಗ್ಗೆ TBDC ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Correct. And majorly, so this TBDC. To have an evidence. ನಾನೇನಿಲ್ಲ ಏನು ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. It is again, I have discussed UPI also. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ನೆನಪಿದ್ರೆ UPI has overtaken, we call it as MasterCard also. ನಾನು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಟೆಂಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿ ಪಕ್ಕ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. UPI ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ, NPCI ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. I have discussed about it is CBDC. What is CBDC? Central Bank Digital Currency. I have discussed about stable coins. ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ನೋಡಿ. That's the reason it is, you should know. Again, chips, while discussing about chips, we have discussed about, we call it as Vikram matadidvi. Vikram 3201, we have talked about Dhruva. Dhruva ni ಎರಡು ಸತಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, RCB ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, recap ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. I have added all those earths also. Homegrown, what is the third one? And I have also given you the differences also about different, we call it as the chips. I'll share all this, I'll share all the PDF today. Or ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ಇದೆ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹತ್ರ ಇದ್ರೆ ನೀವೇ ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾನೇನು ಆಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋತೀರ. You'll get all those things, boss. We cannot fake it. Done. See this. In space, I've discussed, not only in space, I've discussed about NACL also, New Space India Limited. I've discussed about, we call it Antrix. I've discussed about, we call it as ISRO also. And space technology, science and tech kana current affairs discuss ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ I've discussed all those things in space. First one. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, majorly world's first rocket with 3D printed. Skyroot, I have already said, it is Skyroot, GSLV, Skyroot, Vikram, one rocket. Again, this year recap. Science and technology. Recap, science and technology. And Aditi, with respect to Vicolitas, Madhav National Park, ditto, exact language LCN. I have discussed about not only tiger reserves, I have discussed about national parks also. The recent, we call it as the national park. And that's the reason I am saying that it is not the current affairs of, we call it as 1 year, we need to discuss at least 15 months. And when we are discussing it, static kuda nodabekali. Nodi, recent I bandirtakantadu 58th, 57th, 56th, 55th. And about, we call it as the largest, smallest, highest, it is tiger states, tiger census. And go to pakka bande barata one question. I've added now not the same questions. It was declared as a tiger reserve of India. Nodi. March 10th, 2025. And second one, it is present in Shivpuri district of Madhya Pradesh. Nodi. It is area shared between Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Allah. Third one, Nodi. Sakya Sagar, a Ramsar site. Forgetting it. Now we have done this course not for some 500 or 600 hours. It is only 100 hours. 100 hours we have done it. It is 70 hours of recap and 30 hours of the RCB and mapping. All put together 100 hours. Only quality lectures. Nothing more. Next one, let us study National Critical Mineral Mission. We have discussed. About this year also there was a news about rare earth minerals also. I have discussed about which one has highest one. What is the rank of India? Now how many comes under rare earth minerals? And because there is a mission called as, it is this approved in January 2025 National Critical Mineral Mission. Ditto. Rare earth minerals and a critical mineral are correct. Critical mineral mission. Now while discussing economy, I have discussed this. Economy discuss I have discussed A to Z about this. What are the rare earth minerals and strategic minerals, and how many minerals are called as strategic minerals? Now, what about the lithium? What about cobalt? What about the recent, we call it as missions, all those things. Ready? It is sourced from China, Australia, DRC. India is 100% dependent on which one? And again PIB, National Critical Mineral Mission, Rare Earth Mineral Mission. And adnodi, here ditto. From economy, the monetary policy as well as RBI chapter. First topic was this NBFC. It is academic website or academic group, you can check this. NBFC, can they demand deposits? Second one, all the NBFCs, are they part of payment and settlement system? Are they part of payment or not? Fourth one, deposit insurance. Idya ilva, idre ಎಷ್ಟು ಲಕ್ಷದವರೆಗೆ? Deposit. Because there was a news saying that recently Flipkart was being given a status called the status, NBFC status. Adukoskara topic. Yes or no? NBFC, what is NBFC here? Non-banking financial companies or non-bank financial companies. Again, what's the news? Ready? European Union ಬಗ್ಗೆ at least ಒಂದು 4 ಸತಿ discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನಾನು. Why 4 times? The first one was in polity. Why first one was in polity? Because who was the chief guest for 2026 Republic Day parade? European Union. And second one, recently we have gone for finalization of European Union Free Trade Agreement. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಯುರೋಪಿಯನ್ ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಯಾರು ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ I've discussed about ಯಾವ ಟ್ರೀಟಿ ಯಾವುದು ಮ್ಯಾಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ರೀಟಿ ಯಾವಾಗ ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆ 1993 ಅಲ್ಲಿ how many members ಇಲ್ಲಿ obviously ಈ FTL ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸ್ವಿಟ್ಜರ್ಲೆಂಡ್ ಬರಬಾರದು ಅಲ್ವಾ ಸ್ವಿಟ್ಜರ್ಲೆಂಡ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ 444 ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬಂದು ನೋಡಿ yes or no boss ಸ್ವಿಟ್ಜರ್ಲೆಂಡ್ ಬರಬಾರದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಹೋಯ್ತು 4 ಹೋಯ್ತು ಆನ್ಸರ್ must be next one it is UN Ocean Conference See, what I'm trying to explain here is, I completely agree, it is UPSC is unpredictable, but all questions are not unpredictable. All questions are not unpredictable, and that's the reason you need to know what should be the pattern. Now UPSC ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, it is unique practice. If you want to do it, it's not unpredictable, you should do it, it is in a unique manner. ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನಾನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ not clear. And ಹೊರಗಡೆ ಬಂದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಹೇಳ್ತೀರಾ ಟಫ್ ಇದೆ, ಪೇಪರ್ ಇದೆ, ಕಷ್ಟ ಇತ್ತು, ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಬಿಡು ಅಂತ. But be smarter and think uniquely. And your practices and your attitude should also be in a unique manner. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗತ್ತಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ it is selection criteria. That's the selection criteria, that's the basic criteria. You need to do it. Yes or no? ಇವತ್ತಿನ it is ನೋಡೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ದೊಡ್ಡದೇನೋ ಬೋರ್ಡ್ ನೋಡೋದಲ್ಲ, ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗೇನೋ ಬರ್ದಿತ್ತಲ್ಲ ಅದೇನು ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು. ನೀವು ಯಾವ್ದಾದ್ರು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ಗೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕಲಿ ನೀವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಜನ ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀರಾ, ಯಾವ್ದೊಂದು ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಕೆಳಗಡೆ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿ. ನಾವು ಯು ಮೈಟ್ ನೋ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಓಕೆ ಕಾಲೇಜ್ ಯಾವುದು, ಓಕೆ PS ಕ್ರೈಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾವ್ದು ನೋಡ್ತಿರ್ತೀರಾ, ಬಟ್ ಎಜುಕೇಶನಲ್ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂತ ನೋಡಲ್ಲ. ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಆಟಿಟ್ಯೂಡ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿ ಬರ್ದನಂದ್ರೆ ಏನೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೋ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋ ದ್ಯಾಟ್. ಅದೇ ಇನ್ಶೂರೆನ್ಸ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಒಂಥರ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಹಾಕಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ಆಸ್ಟ್ರಿಸ್ಕ್. ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ಯು ನೀಡ್ ಟು not what he is trying to know, rather it is you should see it is what is important for me, that asterisk, criteria, conditions. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಮೇಜರ್ ಆಗಿ we have discussed in it is June 13, 2025 question ಓದಿದ್ವಿ. UN ಕಾನ್ಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ನೈಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತು ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, accelerating this, and exactly they asked a question about, we call it as FAO France ಎಲ್ಲಿ ನಡೀತು, United Nations demonstrating fisheries and aquaculture. ಇಟ್ಟು again ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಅನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಎರಡು ಸಲ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ಒನ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟು RCB as well as with respect to our recap also. Twice I have discussed, ನನಗೆ ನೆನಪಿದೆ, ಬೇಕಿದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಬಹುದು. ಹೋಗಿ ಎನ್ವೈರನ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ I have discussed again with respect to our the recap also I have discussed, because I know ಓಷನ್ ಇಂದ ಒಂದು ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಪಕ್ಕ ಬರಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ನೋಡಿ ST, and this topic I am discussing it from last 2 to 3 years. ಬಟ್ ಕೇಳಿಲ್ಲ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾನೆ ಅಂತ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಇನ್ನು ಈಸಿ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಪ್ರಾವಿಷನ್ ರಿಗಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ ದ ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರೈಬಲ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ದ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಅಸ್ಸಾಂ, ಮೇಘಾಲಯ, ತ್ರಿಪುರಾ, ಮಿಜೋರಾಂ ಆರ್ ಗಿವನ್ ಇನ್ 5th ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್. ಇದನ್ನು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಲದಾಖ್ ವಾಸ್ ಟ್ರೈಂಗ್ ಟು ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ವಿಚ್ ಒನ್ 6th ಶೆಡ್ಯೂಲ್. ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಡೆಡ್ ದಿಸ್, ಬಟ್ ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ ಫೋಟೋ ಅಷ್ಟೇ, ಬಟ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ದ ಫೈನಲ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಅಪ್ಡೇಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಇಟ್. First one wrong. Second one, some tribals of India are entitled. Some means more generalistic, being right is more. Some tribals of India are exempted from paying income tax. Yes, okay. Now notice this, Sikkim does not have IT. I have said this. IT free state is a Sikkim. Third one, the Constitution of India provides for reservation of panchayats. Obviously, yes, 1/3 reservation for ST. CSAT, Panchayat Extension of Scheduled Areas Act of 1996. RCBL first chapter ಇದೆ, or first topic ಇದೆ. PESA 1996. PESA 1996, the first topic of RCB, this one. ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ A to Z ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ RCB ಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಆರ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಐ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಆಲ್ ದೋಸ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೋಕಲ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಯಾವುದು, ಪ್ರಿಮಿಟಿವ್ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಯುಟೀಸ್, ಹೌ ಟು ಡಿಕ್ಲೇರ್ ಅ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಟ್ರೈಬಲ್ as ST. And at the same time I have also discussed about Adi Sanskriti. ಇದು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಷ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಿ, ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ಸ್ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವರ್ಷ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿ ಆದಿ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ. As well as next year 150 years of, we call it as, it is majorly I have said. Now 150 years of Birsa Munda. And that's the reason while going for with respect to this, you need to know all those things. ಹಿಂಗ್ ಓದ್ಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ್ದು ಓದ್ಬೇಕು, ಇವಾಗ ರಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಲ್ಲ. You should widen and you should broaden your horizon also. Done? So this global geoparks. So it is actually, I completely agree, but we have discussed about global geoparks of it is UNESCO also. Now this was being majorly in our recap June 3rd, 2025, directly from our UNESCO website. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಳ್ತಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದು ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಗ್ಲೋಬಲ್ ಜಿಯೋ ಪಾರ್ಕ್ ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಸ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ವಾಲ್ಕೆನೋ. This volcano, it has been declared as global geopark in 2005. It is situated in which of the following? This is very difficult, but it is more of not a core one, rather it is the peripheral one. We have discussed about the geoparks networks also. We have discussed about, we call it as the BHS also. What's BHS? Biodiversity heritage sites by discuss. Not a bogus question, or we call it as the bonus question, I can say. It is Kaladan multimodal. We have discussed. We have discussed time or less also. Why Kaladan? Because the government has given a target saying that by 2027 we will complete this Kaladan multimodal. Is Kaladan? Direct question. Second one, Timor Leste. It is East Timor. It is majorly we call it as ASEAN. IMT also have discussed. India, Myanmar, Thailand, trilateral highway. And we also discussed about Agartala and Akora Rail also. It is between Bangladesh. India and Bangladesh, not with respect to we call it as India and ASEAN countries. We have discussed. We have discussed Kaladan multimodal project. We have discussed Timor Leste. We have discussed about ASEAN. All with respect to our the recap. Hope you're getting it. Done. Next one, Nodi. Zero FIR. I have discussed that zero FIR also. What is zero FIR? It does not have jurisdiction. It does not have jurisdiction. Cognizable and non-cognizable kagata. BNSL idea. Athwa major it is mandatory and obligatory na anta. I have discussed this. Zero FIR local language. What are the new provisions? Now recently Ministry of Home Affairs has issued direction to the UTs to issue that zero FIR. Recorded in local languages, carry translated copy, forwarded to different languages also. Now it is mentioned under which one? CRPC, as well as the present one we call it as a CRPC, as well as we call it as BNSS. Bharatiya Nagarika Suraksha Sanhita to register an FIR. The next comes are we call it as the major one, we call it as now RBI reports financial inclusion index. Criminal question kali. This one. Direct. Now while discussing about this part, I have discussed about which all things. Financial inclusion and Reno. Now 2024 news 2024. What is financial inclusion index? Now released by a score arrow. Now released by whom? Released by RBI. Now it has been released since whereby it is the parameters. But on ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ merge ಮಾಡಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ not visible. But we have seen this. Access, usage and quality. The same thing we have discussed about two important ports. One is Galicia port we have discussed, and Visingham the port also. Now while discussing about economy, the industry topic anna discuss ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ I have discussed about we call it as majorly the bridges. Further we have discussed about we call it as the major agi it is the roads, the railways, airways discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ Visingham port ಬಗ್ಗೆ have discussed. This with respect to international seaport representing Visingham port in Kerala. Trivandrum Kerala, deep the international transshipment port. And what is the need here? What is the need here? It's a natural deep sea port. ಇಲ್ಲಿ discuss ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ I've discussed about western ports, eastern ports, A to Z ports. It was direct question. I hope you're getting it. Ready? Flights. I have discussed not only about this aircraft accident investigation bureau, and we have also discussed about electronic personal license also. ಇದನ್ನ RCB lo ಮತ್ತೆ recap ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀನಿ. Now is the first one to who is the first one to issue we call it as major agi the first female to get we call it as electronic personal licenses Ishita Bhargava. And ಅದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಇದೇನಾದರೂ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋರು ಯಾರು? It is aircraft accident investigation bureau. ಯಾವಾಗ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಆಯಿತು? ಏನಕ್ಕೆ ಆಯಿತು? Black box. Black box is not black in color. What is it? It is wrong. First one is wrong. Second and third is correct. Now this is not completely related, but third option is related. I have discussed. ನಿಮಗೆ ನೆನಪಿದ್ರೆ the presence of the same species of dolphin in both Indus and Ganga river dolphin ಅಂತೆ. Same ಇದೆಯಾ boss? ಇಲ್ಲ, we have two important dolphins. One is Indus dolphin as well as we call it as Ganga dolphin, candidate dolphin. I have discussed this, the project dolphin 2.0 also. ಏನಕ್ಕಪ್ಪ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಲಾಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Candidate dolphin 2.0. I have discussed about this the MCQs also, the PYQs also. At the same time, we have discussed about what is Bulan, what is Indus dolphin, what is we call it as the Baiji, what's Amazon dolphin, A to Z I have discussed. It's a brief one by one videos will upload in the YouTube also. You have all the evidences. The next comes are we call it as nodi hemophilia. NP discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ ನಾನು. It is science and tech ಅಲ್ಲಿ hemophilia ಬಗ್ಗೆ discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ. I have discussed about CRISPR-Cas9 also. I have discussed about different medicines also. Hemophilia, it is gene therapy, direct patient. You'll notice which of the following statements are correct with respect to we call genetic medicine is correct. Genetic medicine correct or compensate for the faulty genes. The compensate for we call it as the faulty genes. Now gene therapy it's a biomedical technique that modifies or replaces the faulty genes in a personal cell to treat or to prevent disease. Second, engineered viruses and lipid nanoparticles are used for genetic medicine. Obviously, yes, CRISPR-Cas9 ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೂಡ discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೆ ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ. And the third one we got genetic medicines alter the entire DNA. Wrong, common sense question 1 and 2. It does not alter the complete DNA, rather it alters which one? A part of a gene. I have discussed what gene andre eno, what is chromosomes andre eno, what is DNA andre eno, RNA andre eno. I have discussed while discussing about science and technology. Again and again I am saying it is not to prove myself. Rather, at least okay na vedana keli, at least you should align your with respect to your attitude and you should solve. When you are preparing for 2027, you should have a clear cut plan. Plan ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, every day you should update 1% every day. Now 1% growth every day leads to 365% increase compared to we got us 25th of May. Next May ಅಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ 365% grow ಆಗಿರಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅದು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ. You should know what to read and what not to read here. Time waste ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. You should know which source, how to read it, how to become smarter. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ time waste ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಓದೋದಲ್ಲ. Just effective reading should be there. Done. The next comes are we call it as majorly the quantum. ನೋಡಿ quantum ಬಗ್ಗೆ quantum technology park ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. It is ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು QCT ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ನಮ್ಮ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕದಲ್ಲಿ, what is quantum technologies, what is national quantum mission, quantum ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, types ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು, features ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು discuss ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ ಎಲ್ಲ. And we also discussed about QCT. It's in Bengaluru, Estarghatta. We have discussed about we call it as quantum noise. The next comes are we call it as the major one. It is the mangroves, the MISTI. This is 2023 the budget, union budget. MISTI about MISTI. In MISTI ಏನು ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. Mangrove initiative for it is we call it as mangrove initiative for we call it as majorly it is tangible incomes. MISTI initiative. What's right and what is wrong? In easy question, the bonus question also. You would have studied it in your we call it as ಎಲ್ಲಪ್ಪ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೇಜರ್ with respect to your ecology also. And again we have discussed about we call it as Malhotra committee with respect to IRDI, Insurance Regulatory Development Authority of India. IRDI ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂಗೆ it is Malagam committee discuss ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ with respect to RBI surplus transfers. ನೋಡಿ Malagam committee recommendations. And Urjit Patil also we have discussed. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ discuss ಮಾಡಿ Urjit Patil also we have discussed the same thing. Malagam, Urjit Patil, Malhotra ಇದೊಂದು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಆಪ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ there is no all options, it is even 3 options are more than sufficient. Done boss? Done. This is with respect to our majorly about our we call it as about our our UPSC Prelims 2026 about how was the paper and how to align with respect to our UPSC the Prelims paper anna for our upcoming examination. How to align this, how was the paper, we have discussed about cutoff also, we have discussed about the toughness, how was it, ಎಲ್ಲದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ discuss ಮಾಡಿ. And along with this about our we call it the toppers feedback also with respect to now she is serving as a Tahsildar now it is, and second one now he is we call it as the BLLE work ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. At the same time he has also given KPSC interview also recently. Done. This is about our the feedback as well as reviews. We got a number of feedback but the most important one has been done. This is all with respect to our we call it as our major important one. Our major important one we call it as the UPSC the prelims ಅನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಬರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಗಳಿಗೆ ನಾವು we need to use it and at the same time ಆ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು That is how to plan, how to be consistent, how to be a successful with respect to all the three stages. The prelims, mains and interview ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂಗೆ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ and how current affairs plays a major important role. And even though we are not saying that ಈ course ತಗೊಂಡ್ರೆ ನೀವು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ತೀರಾ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, but it is for your preparation you could have used this course. 30 questions, even decently 25 questions doing it right, 25 into 2 ಅಂದ್ರೆ 50 marks ಬರ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಈ ನೀವೇನು ದಬಾಗಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು 30 ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ದಬಾಗಬೇಕಾಗಿತ್ತು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಅದನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿ don't go for ego and don't go for it as we call it as it is ಪಕ್ಕದವ್ರು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಬೇಡ. But when you are doing it, it is you should do it with a planned, a strategy. Done. This note, I hope I have answered all your questions with respect to our UPSC. It is in the upcoming week we'll discuss about a detailed, we call it as the question paper. Each and every question, how to solve this, what should be our content, ಎಲ್ಲದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ in an upcoming week ಅಲ್ಲಿ I'll discuss all those. Done. This is all for today. Thank you. See you all. Any questions you have? Sources. Now coming to with respect to our sources. The first and the foremost source should be, the source should be, now you should decide you're a self-studier or you're attending class. First one is one attending class, and second one is one who are going for, we call it as which one? Self-study. Now my simple question is, one who are attending class, it is revise your class notes, only revision of your class notes, and along with those things you should go for PYQs. Sir, ellaru heladu antandre aa PYQs alla, the PYQs of UPSC ಕಂಡಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ PYQs ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಯಾವುದು ಸರ್ ಅದು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಮೇಜರ್ ಆಗಿ PYQs of one CSE. You can do it at last. This you can do it at last, but the thing is when you are going for we call it as the PYQs. See, my simple question is, see, when you are attending the class, automatically the faculty is doing everything for you, and what the need for going again and again and reading the same content? ಈಗ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿಗೆ ನಾನು think that I am teaching quality tomorrow. ನಾವು ಅದು ನನ್ನ ಕೆಲಸ ಗುರು, ನಾನು ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್ ಓದಬೇಕು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಡಿ ಬಸ್ ಓದಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಬಂದು ಟೀಚ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಬಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಇಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಡೂ ಯುವರ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಆಸ್ ಮನಿ PYQs. ಸರ್ PYQs ಯಾವುದು ಸರ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, PYQs you need to go with respect to our the CDS examination, NDA, CISF, CRPF, this you need to do it. Sir, why this? See, rather than you reading the same source again and again from the class and from the reference books, this is very good, boss. Now from each and every subject at least solve some 1000 questions. Quality 1000, geography 1000, economics 1000, automatically this is done with the game. You are reading also, you are revising also, at the same time you are going for directly with respect to what? It is applying of your knowledge. Am I in a position to solve that? See, I have no preamble, but am I in a position to solve the preamble questions? That decides your rank. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಕೇಳಿದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಓದ್ತೀನಂದ್ರೆ ವೇರ್ ದರ್ ವ್ಯಾಲಿಡೇಷನ್? there is no validation at all. Even though if there is validation, there is very minimal validation, that is 10 to 20% validation. Recent trends. Now not even recent trends, the past trends also, it doesn't make sense. My simple question is, this exam is not about, it is the 10th or PU level examination. This exam is demanding a basic qualification of degree. If that's the case, you need to read the reference books. Hope you're getting it. I don't want to question much on this because there'll be more controversies. But my question here is, okay, if you're attending classes, that is my job to do it. Brushing up of your references books, or we call it as the PYQs, as well as with respect to you, we call it as our NCRTs. But ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ just a fast brush up. And that to selected NCRTs you should do it. For geography 11th and 12th, for economics no NCRT, for we call it polity only 11th and 12th, Indian constitution at work, for it is history, it is old NCRTs, ancient, medieval and modern old NCRTs, exactly same like spectrum, taught by Satish Chandra as well as we call it as it is R.S. Sharma, same. Old NCRTs are very good, boss. And science and tech no NCRTs, only current affairs. And with respect to art and culture, you can go for, we call it as, we have one 11th standard NCERT. It is with respect to art and culture. Very good book, and all the questions are coming from that 11th NCERT itself. Selected NCERTs you should. 11th art and culture, second one history done, polity 11th and 12th, geography done, followed by the next one we got us economics, no NCERTs. Directly go for the source books or class notes, sufficient. Current affairs. Science and tech, no NCERTs. Now environment ecology, no NCERT required, directly go to either source books, or it can be Shankar IAS, or it can be PMFIS. One book, that should be your Brahmastra. Rather than reading n number of books, multiple books should not be the game here, boss. And when you're going for self-study, start with NCERTs. From NCERT, you need to do it. Because you don't know the concepts here. NCERTs in them, applied. This takes time and this takes more effort also. But if you want to clear this exam within 1 year, 1.5 years, I would suggest this recently. Do your foundation, plus with respect to your, it is while doing foundation every day. Class barte newspaper ಓದಬೇಕು, newspaper ತರಬೇಕು, ಒಬ್ರು ತರಲ್ಲ, ಓದಲ್ಲ, ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಏನು ಗೊತ್ತಾ, ಎಲ್ಲ ರೆಡಿಮೇಡ್ ಸಿಗಬೇಕು ನಿಮಗೆ. ಈ ರೆಡಿಮೇಡ್ ಇಂದ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬರಲ್ಲ ಬಸ್. You will get satisfaction, but you won't get marks. That's the reason I always say that this exam is not about an satisfactory examination. Rather, this exam is all about competitive. Compared to the last examinations, ಇವೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದ CDS ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. What's the mindset of UPSC? What's the mindset of we call it as the examiner? What's the mindset of we call it as the trends? ಹೋಗಿ ಟೆಲಿಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಬಸ್ UPSC PYQ ಅಂತ ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿ 1000 ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ ಬರ್ತವೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಗಿ NDA CDS ಎಲ್ಲ ಒಂದೇ ಕಡೆ ಇರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಒಂದು ಟೆಲಿಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿ ಸರ್ಚ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಷ್ಟು ಪ್ರಿಯಾಂಬಲ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ 1000 ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸರ್ ಅದು ಬೇಡವಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗೋ ಟು ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ರೋಬೋಟ್ ಅಂತ. ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ರೋಬೋಟ್ ಅಂತ ವೆಬ್ಸೈಟ್ ಇದೆ. ಗೋ ಟು ದಟ್. ಆರ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟು ಟೆಲಿಗ್ರಾಮ್ ಹೋಗಿ ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಟೆಲಿಗ್ರಾಮ್ UPSC PYQ ಚಾನಲ್ ಅಂತ ಒಂದಿದೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಜಾಯ್ನ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಸಾಲ್ವ್ ಇಟ್. They have uploaded all the examinations related to UPSC and state examinations also. Recent ನಡೆದಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ MPPSC ಇದು ಹೋದವರ MPPSC ನಡೀತು, ಆ MPPSC ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಪೇಪರ್ ಕೂಡ ಅಪ್ಲೋಡ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. Do that, solve that. Don't do multiple the part again and again. Class ಮತ್ತೆ reference, what is the use? ಅದ್ರ ಬದಲು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಗಾದ್ರೆ you should solve more. Every day 50 boss. Think about it is, if it is June ಇಂದ ಡಿಸೆಂಬರ್ ವರೆಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಮಂತ್ ಆಯ್ತು? 6 months. 6 into 3, 180 days. ನಮ್ಮ ಏಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ we call it as, it is 180 into 50 ಲೆಕ್ಕ ಮಾಡಿ. ಎಷ್ಟಾಯ್ತಪ್ಪ? Every day 50 questions. 10 months up till next prelims. ಎಷ್ಟಾಗತ್ತೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ. ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು 20,000 ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಏನು ಬರುತ್ತೆ? If some bouncer question will also always be there. Teen bouncer will be there. A bouncer you cannot decide your fate, or it cannot decide your fate. It can make you difficult. That does not mean that it will decide your fate. That we need to plan it and clear ಆಗಿ ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ಬರಲ್ಲ, ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಏನು ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಮೇನ್ಸ್ ಗಾದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಸರ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ attend a class, you know the concept, but take a question, write a question. Every day one question. Question ಬರೀರಿ ಬಾಸ್, ಗೊತ್ತಿರೋದನ್ನ ಬರೀರಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅದನ್ನ. Basic question, take an example of what is plate tectonics. Take an example, what is the constitution? And with respect to current affairs, you need to do it with respect to newspaper. Current affairs, every day you need to do it. No alternative for current affairs. I can bet you saying that ಇನ್ನೊಂದು 10 ವರ್ಷ 100 ವರ್ಷ ಆದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ current affairs ಬಂದೇ ಬರ್ತವೆ. Again, without current affairs, there is no competitive examination. Because everyone are good with research static, but no one is good at current affairs. But current affairs ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು ಕೂಡ no one is consistent. They are doing it in episode manner, they are doing it on, we call it as, it is bits and pieces. ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಿನ ಓದ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ಝಿನ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಿನ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದು ಮ್ಯಾಗ್ಝಿನ್ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಯಾವುದು ಬೇಡ ನಾನು ಹಂಗೆ ನೋಡು ಬರಿತೀನಿ, ಒಂದು ಸದ್ಗುರು ತರ ಬರಿತೀನಿ ನೋಡು ಅಂತಾರೆ. ಹಂಗೆ ತಲೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹಂಗೆ ಬರ್ದ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀನಿ. There is no shortcut boss. There is always an it is hard work followed by we call it smart work. Then we can clear this examination. Done. Okay. This is all with respect to our the majorly we call it as one attending classes and second one we call it self study. My point of focus here is ನನಗೆ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಬೇಕು ಗುರು ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ನನಗೆ ಸ್ಯಾಟಿಸ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಷನ್ ಬೇಡ. ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀಕಾಂತ್ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು 10 ಸತಿ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟೆ ಬೇಡ, ರಮೇಶ್ ಸಿಂಗ್ 10 ಸತಿ ಓದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇಡ, ಸಂಜೀವ್ ವರ್ಮ ಓದ್ದೆ ಬೇಡ, ನಿತಿನ್ ಸಿಂಗಾನಿ ಓದ್ದೆ ಬೇಡ, PMFS ನಂಗೆ ಬೇಡ. ಅದು ವಾಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಔಟ್ಕಮ್? if I'm solving questions related to environment and ecology, am I in a position to solve it or not? ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನಂಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು. out of 100 questions ಅಲ್ಲಿ am I in a position to solve at least 90 questions? Out of 90 questions 70 questions ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದೆಯಾ ಬೇಕು ನಂಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಬಟ್ ಯಾವುದೋ ಫಾಲ್ತು ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಥೆಂಟಿಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮಿನೇಷನ್ ಕಂಡಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಬೈ ಅಗೇನ್ ಬೈ UPSC, again by state constitutional bodies. You need to do it. That comes your the scope for application. You'll think on everyday basis. See, in a single day you cannot become a master of everything, but with a gradual practice you can be a master of all. Hope getting it. ನನಗೇನು PhD ಬೇಡ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ, ನನಗೇನು ಬೇಕು, ನಮ್ಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕು ಅಷ್ಟು. ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ಕಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, 85 to 90 ಬರಬೇಕು ನನಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. 50 questions at least ರೈಟ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು. One who are going for self study, automatically it is majority of them are influenced verily. It is saying that ಏನು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಡಿ ಹಂಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತೀವಿ ಹಂಗೆ ಅಂತ. Majorly you know there are different motivational the content you get. It is saying that self study ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ. But this exam, it is I'm in this field the last 11 years. I know ಯಾವ್ದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಯಾವ್ದು ವರ್ಕ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಬರ್ತಾರೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಕೌಂಟಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಕೂಡ ಕೇಳಿ, ಗೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ಕೆ ಕೇಳಿ ನೋಡೋಣ. ನೋ, ದೇ ವೋಂಟ್ ಡು ಇಟ್. ಅಟ್ ದ ಚಾಲೆಂಜ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಯುವರ್ ವರ್ಕ್. ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ, ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆಲ್ಲ ಇವಾಗ ರೆಕಾರ್ಡ್ ಆಗಿದೆ, ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತೀನಿ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಕೌಂಟಬಿಲಿಟಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಸಿ ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ದ ಅದರ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಆರ್ ಸೇಯಿಂಗ್, ಡೋಂಟ್ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ದೆಮ್. ಬಟ್ ನಿಮ್ಗೇನು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಅದನ್ನ ತಪ್ಪು, ಸರಿನಾ ಸರಿ. ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಯುವರ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೈನ್ಸ್, ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್ ಯುವರ್ ಬಿಲೀಫ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವರ್ಕ್ ಅಕಾರ್ಡಿಂಗ್ಲಿ. ಅಂಡ್ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಟೇಕ್ ಮಚ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ಈಗೋ. ದಟ್ ನಾನೇ ಗ್ರೇಟು, ನಾನೇ ಮಾಡೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ. But do it, but with a right practice. Take a mentorship, come to academy, just ask our mentors, saying that sir idu martini sari idea tappidiya, I'm doing this, solve every day. But whatever you do it, but every day some 50 questions of PYQ should be, and one means you should write it. That's my humble request also. And when you're talking about means, the most important one is the ethics as well as essay. It is very scoring. Essay antu one case study antu prati vara baribeku, one at least per week case studies. And second one essay per week, either Sunday or it is Monday. ಒಂದು ವಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದಂತೂ ಬರೀಲೇಬೇಕು. And current affairs at least it is, you should brush up. Monday to Saturday you will read it, and on Sunday you should brush up that current affairs. Done, not to worry, because we are here, it is always to help you. And this is all with respect to our class. Done. I hope you got some insights about, with respect to, we call it as this UPSC Prelims CSE 2026. I don't want to indulge much because you have written your exam, it is yesterday itself, and in the upcoming week or by Wednesday or Thursday, it is I'll come up with all the detailed discussion with respect to UPSC Prelims 2026 along with the sources. ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಕೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನು ಓದಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ್ದನ್ನು ಓದಬಾರ್ದು, how to analyze, all those things we'll discuss. But till then, take some rest, and after that we'll discuss about all those things. Done. Thank you all.